Jody and Julie with FoodStorageMadeEasy.net, and we're going to be talking about cooking fuel for situations where you may need to cook without power. First, we'd like to say with any cooking fuel or these kinds of things, make sure you follow your local rules and guidelines for how much you can store, where you can store it, and all that. And also do your own research about certain things for cooking indoors and outdoors. Most of these things you cannot use indoors, however there are a few exceptions with wood-burning stoves and that kind of thing. The first fuel we're going to talk about is INSTA-FIRE, and there's a lot more about INSTA-FIRE on our website and down below. What we love the most about INSTA-FIRE is that you can store it for up to 30 years, you can store as much of it as you want, and you can store it next to your food, so you don't have to be worrying about storing it in different places or outside or anything like that. INSTA-FIRE is an emergency fuel, and it's also a fire starter. These fire starters you can bring along in your 72-hour kits or when you go camping or anything like that. They make really handy packages. You can take INSTA-FIRE, put it on a lot of camping stoves, on the ground, or even just on the snow and light it. You can put it on top of wet wood, light it, it'll burn from the top down, so you can use wet wood in situations where you may otherwise not be able to. So we really like INSTA-FIRE and store quite a bit of it. The next thing is charcoal. Charcoal is good for things like in your barbecue or Dutch ovens. One nice thing about charcoal is that you can control the temperature by the number of briquettes. So you'll be able to know kind of what temperature you're cooking. If you're baking something in a Dutch oven, you're going to be able to get the right temperature to bake. Another good thing about it is that it's fairly inexpensive. One thing is that it's not so good about it is it's pretty bulky. You can't store it near food. It takes up a lot of space. The storage life on charcoal ranges depending where you look. Some says it's indefinite, however, the longer you have it, the harder it is to light. Another fuel is just plain old wood. Wood, like charcoal, can be bulky, and it can also be hard to know how much to store. You can't really say one log will cook for a certain amount of hours or whatnot, so it can be hard to know exactly how much to store, but obviously wood is plentiful. It can be cheap. You can store it anywhere you want. You obviously want to store it neatly and kind of out of the way and stuff, but that's another fuel that you can consider.
Another one that's pretty common is propane. So you may have a propane barbecue grill. So if you want to use that as one of your main sources of powerless cooking, you'll need to store quite a bit of extra propane. And that could be a concern because there are legal limits to how much you can store depending on where you live. So make sure to call your local fire department on that. It's very flammable, so you want to store it outside, not in a attached garage. It needs to be in a separate building like a shed or something like that. Propane is also the most common fuel used in camping stoves. So there are a lot of camping stoves that would use these little one gallon containers. And another fuel similar to propane is butane, and that one you can actually store inside. It's safer than propane, and there are butane stoves that you can buy as well. Another one that's really great is just canned fuel. It's not hugely cheap, but you can use it indoors safely. It says so on the can. And you can store it inside as well. So you can just have a bunch of stacks of this on your shelves. And it's a great option for that. The only problem is you can't cook straight on this, so you have to get a little additional stove for it. But they're really cheap. You can even make them. And then the last one we're going to talk about today is just fuel pellets. This comes in a bar and you break it into thirds, and each third will boil like a cup of water, and they have little camping stoves that fit these little fuel pellets. So they're great to throw in your 72-hour kit as well, and you can store a ton of them if you have the space or desire. They're not really great to use for cooking big things or baking or anything that's going to feed a huge family, but for small situations they're cheap and easy to store. Hopefully that was a helpful overview of all of the different cooking fuels that you can use as you're starting to learn about powerless cooking. And remember, if you just follow the links below, then you can learn more about all of these different fuels and where they're available for sale, or you can always visit us at FoodStorageMadeEasy.net.